Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm James, that's Katie, and of course, that makes this Circles and Squares, a PlayStation podcast. And we're past the first episode now, Kate. This is number 2. We're back. We're professional podcasters now.
That's right. You could call us veterans at this point.
Industry veterans, of course.
That's right.
Have you yet watched The Platform?
Oh, I haven't. You know what's funny is I almost watched it last night, but it was just by the time we were ready to watch and we dicked around deciding what to do, it was just a little too late.
It gets too late. Because I'll tell you something, everyone right now is on a lot of Netflix, right? Because it's the isolation, everyone's staying home, and everyone's binging Tiger King. And let me say, once you're done with Tiger King, or if you want to just make a better choice, go watch The Platform. It's a really deeply disturbing and disgusting kind of horror movie about what would you do if you were starving and had no option but to like starve or do some really gross things. I'll leave it at that, but definitely check it out. Worth your time.
So be excited, but don't make any popcorn ahead of time.
That's right. Yeah, you may not want to eat something while you watch, but I fully recommend that one. Check it out. But that's not what we're talking about today. Of course, this is a PlayStation podcast. We thank everyone here that wants to continue to listen to us. And if you like what you hear, please go on over, pull your car over, leave us a review. 5 stars is best. If you like what you hear, we'll continue to do more, and you can help us grow the show and gain a newer audience, everything like that. You can also come interact with us on Twitter at CANDSPod, at CNSPod. Of course, that has links as well to all of our other various sites, including YouTube and emails. But enough about that. Kate, let's talk about the games we've been playing. What have you been playing these days?
I have been playing a extreme amount, and yet somehow nowhere near as much as I'd like to, of Divinity Original Sin 2. This game is basically D&D the video game. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's come up on the channel yet. I mean, we're only 2 episodes in, so maybe,
we've spoken about it before, maybe but not future. On the show.
But anyway, I play D&D weekly with a phenomenal, wonderful, lovely D&D group that actually gets together every week.
Which is shout
out,
yeah, an absolute
shout
anomaly.
Out to you guys. So it's been a big part of my life recently and something I've got, really into. So I've been playing Divinity, which is basically encapsulated the amazing parts of D&D, but also is just an amazing video game in its own right. So I'm playing it couch co-op with my boyfriend, who has already played through most of the game, but has been lovely enough to be excited about playing it a second time. And it is just, I dream about this game.
It's just all encompassing.
Like it's just taken over our lives. Like I dream about it. There's been times where like after playing for like an absolutely embarrassing, horrible 7 hours straight
Holy crap.
Something, I'll like close my eyes and I see like the hot bar like in my closed
That's how you know
vision.
you're ingrained in this.
And like we've just become absolutely obsessed with it. But it's so compelling. It's one of those games where you feel like you've maybe been playing for 2 hours and you look and it's been like 5 hours and we haven't gotten up. Like it's absolutely like it saps your life
dense,
energy.
Right?
It's dense. It's got a little bit of everything. There's heavy role-playing elements to it. It has got like really great written like quest lines and characters and world building. It has an amazing in-depth turn-based combat system, and like the character build is so flexible and varied, and it does so many different things simultaneously, and they work just beautifully together. I think we're about halfway through now. There's 4 main acts in the game, and we just finished Act 2.
After playing that much?
Oh, God. Yeah. I mean, we haven't been playing for a large stretch of time. We just play for large quantities at any given time.
Right.
So it's only been like maybe a month at most, but we've just been densely packing that month. It's great. I think my favorite thing about the game is how invested I've gotten in the world. And it's the game to me that I've played that really embodies most the idea that what you do has an effect on the world and there are consequences for all your actions. I think a lot of games now like to boast that that's an aspect to the game.
Yeah, diverging story path.
Diverging story path, and your choices matter. But and it's true to a degree, and they put that into their game in various levels, and sometimes you don't want that. Sometimes it's better to have a very like crafted story that you work your way through, and you're a specific character, and I don't think there's anything wrong with having a linear game. Some of my favorite games, like BioShock, for example, work so well because they're linear.
Yeah.
And it would take away from it to give the character or the player character more freedom. But it's really beautiful to see a game that does it so well. Like, every time we come across a new NPC or a new situation, we actually strategize, okay, this character, because it's a party of 4 is how your party is. So you make your own player character, and then you recruit from a section of like pre-made characters who all have different storylines and things going on. You recruit them to fill in any blanks in your party. So for us, because we're playing 2 players, we have our own character we made, and then we both have a recruited character.
One NPC along with you.
Yeah. And you fully play that NPC. They're just an already preset.
Right, they're not quite as customized as you were.
You still customize everything they do and like what type of unit they're going to be and all their skills, but they have a specific backstory. Like, they are, for my character, he's called the Red Prince. He's the Red Prince. That's his story, and you can't change that. But how I want him to play, I've built him as a cool tanking unit.
Yeah.
That's up to you. So every time we go up to a scenario, it's like, well, I think Sybil should talk to these characters because she's an elf. And they're an elf, so they're going to like her. Or, like, my character is the more charismatic sort of build. I have, like, points in persuasion and things. So I do a lot of the, like, talking to characters. I initiate a lot of conversation because I tend to have a lot of some more dialogue options. But, like, sometimes we get in a situation, it's like, oh, my character's a lizard, so the guy I'm talking to is really racist towards me.
And hates magic.
Because he hates lizards, and I, like, I'm a big, like, 7-foot tall lizard.
It's
and, like,
a little off-putting for certain people.
A little off-putting, yeah. It turns out they're really racist a lot of the time. Specifically lizards. It's great that our face of the party is the most
lizard,
unappealing race, as it turns out. But every time we talk, and then there'll be, you get the dialogue options, which I think if you watch the previous episode, I did mention as part of our quiz, something that the game does really well and that I appreciate. But to elaborate on that some more, when we talk to an NPC, we often get options to speak to them or interact with them in a certain way based off of not only my character traits, so like I have
that you're a giant lizard.
That I'm a giant fucking lizard and I will breathe fire in your face. So I've got that sometimes plays into it, or like my character has like a scholarly background, so sometimes I'll get into situations.
How unexpected for a giant lizard.
I'm also a noble. So I'm a regal lizard who often sets everything on fire accidentally. But I get options based on that. So we'll come across a situation where maybe a character is being sort of vague about some kind of magical property they have, and I can just call them out because I'm a scholar and I would know about those things, whereas another character
would have no idea.
Would have no idea.
They just take them on face value. Yeah.
But it's also really cool because we have various like traits we've gained through the game from doing things. So we've kind of like helped out an elven faction. So sometimes that comes up and we can use like my elf friend status to then influence a conversation totally later in the game.
That's really cool. So the thread, sometimes you'll do something and then hours later there's a payoff. Yeah,
exactly. So there's constantly like referencing things we've done in the past, or you get a lot of choices in quest lines on how to do them, and then based on what kind of road you took, different characters will have opinions of you based on how you chose to do storylines earlier.
Yeah.
So it's really cool because you're constantly feeling like all of your choices were important and you're being validated for the things that you did. And it's also nice because sometimes you'll come up in a situation and like maybe they're part of a faction you helped earlier, but you haven't met them. And in another game, they might just be this random NPC that's like, oh, well, you do this stupid quest for me so I can gain your favor. But it's like, okay, but because of me earlier in the game, your faction's doing incredibly well, and they just recognize
and they like
that.
you. You're almost like someone they already know, even though you've never met them.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's neat so that depending on what order you do things, different quests go totally different. So we've had times where we've done things kind of in a strange, or not a strange order, but just how we happened to do it. Like we helped out this one character who was an apprentice to like a character we were hoping would teach us some more magic. And so when we met that character, instead of having to like go do a quest for her, or like she would probably send you to go help out that
the other faction,
the apprentice, we were just able to rock up and be like, hey, Gwendolyn told us about you, he can vouch for us. She's like, oh, interesting, you help Gwendolyn, great, he's my apprentice, how can I help you? So
I think a lot of games try to do what this game is doing,
and I appreciate that it is incredibly difficult, like the amount of writing that you have to do to kind of incorporate all the different like dialogues based on what you've done, and like the forethought for thinking, well, what if they've done this first? It is an incredible undertaking. I can imagine it took them such a long time in development to write out all the different options. I understand why a lot of games don't do it, but it is just, it's constantly impressing me based off of just how thorough they are.
How well thought out everything is.
Yeah, it's so well thought out. But then, like, the game's also hilarious and silly, and you get these small, dumb quest lines of, like, oh, these people have been turned into cows, and, like, you have to go get a potion that will change that. And then if you find the potion ahead of time and you drink it, it turns you into a cow, because it's, like, a back and forth silly, like, there's so much, like, silly little stuff hidden in it as well, that it's always a joy to, like, all of the quests are fun to do, even if they're dumb and like
it's compelling, even if it's just a fun little aside compared to the grander mission, I guess.
Yeah, and it's fun to play as a couch co-op thing, because not only do we have so much of the world, but we've also kind of created sub stories going on in our group dynamic. So, for example, we recently had a funny turn. So my character is a lizard, which we know. But my other character I play, who I have, is also a lizard. He's like a lizard prince. He's called the Red Prince. And they look super cool together. I have them decked out in cool lizard armor. And so it's kind of become my headcanon that, like, my character's trying to, like, date the prince. Like, they're going to be this great lizard power couple. So we've been going off of this all game. That, you know, they're a couple, and, like, the Red Prince is very, like, he's kind of standoffish, and he sort of thinks he's better than everyone else being a prince. And he's one of those characters that you can tell has a good heart, but he's, you know, you got to break through that outer shell first. So I've been trying to do that all game long. And, you know, we've gotten to the point where, because you can talk to your followers and give different dialogue, and it's neat because you sort of build that bond with them. But at the same time, like, if they don't like you, they'll actually leave your party. Like, you have to sort of keep them interested to a degree.
That's kind of cool.
So the prince, I've made so much progress. I've broken through. He's admitted that we're good friends. And, like, every time something like that happens, I'm like, oh, Matthias, look, like, the prince just complimented me. This is amazing. We're going to be the best couple. And he's been so encouraging. Like, oh, yeah, you guys are so great. That's so nice. Good for you. Like, oh, you're making so much progress. And so he's played this before. And when he played, one of the guys he played with was the Red Prince. So he knows his Red Prince storyline. So he's been encouraging me in my wonderful love story, my lizard romance this whole time. And we finally get to a portion of the game. And this is maybe a very, very minor spoiler. But it turns out that part of the Red Prince's specific story quest is there's a Red Princess.
Oh no.
And they want to, like, get together, and they're soulmates.
Oh my god.
And they're gonna, like, recreate, like, they're gonna bring dragons back into the world by having dragon babies. And Matthias knew this the whole time. And the Red Prince told us about it, and we got this storyline that now we have to, you know, like, keep going and fulfill. And they met and slept together immediately.
Oh my god.
And my character's just been sitting there, oh, yeah, that's nice. Good for you. Sure. So supportive. Like,
heartbreaking.
I've been devastated.
Heartbreaking.
And it's just been an absolutely, like, wonderful, like...
So you're saying you're not going to finish this game now because you're too upset about what happened?
No, I'm playing it cool, hoping it doesn't work out. And then, like, you know, he sees I've been supportive. I've been here the whole time. Like, sometimes you got to get to the very end for, you know, it's like a rom-com, right? Like,
exactly. These kind of things always happen. There's bumps in the road. That's right.
This is the mid-story conflict where eventually at the end...
It can't be too easy. It can't be too easy.
That's right. I've got it. I'm holding out hope still.
You'll have to update us how that goes.
I will.
As we continue to talk about Divinity Original Sin 2.
Yes, it's going to be a big part of my life, hopefully, for the next... I would love to stretch this game out for the next 3 years, but I have a feeling we might finish it before then.
Yeah, if you're playing 7 hours a session, I think so too.
But yeah, if you're into like a really immersive, and the combat, like, which I didn't even get into, and we maybe don't have time for today, but it is amazing and tactical and difficult, but phenomenal. So maybe next time we'll talk about that. But if you want a really immersive, rewarding, and game that just can eat away at your entire life, which is the perfect time for something like that right now.
It really, really is.
Purchase a copy of Divinity, get a couple friends together. It's phenomenal.
It's a good time. Cool, man.
Yeah.
So I've been playing a couple things. I'm happy you just mentioned having something to do during this time of being stuck inside, being at home. And I've really gotten into something that's a bit unexpected for me, which is I had Fortnite, which I mentioned I'd played on the last episode when I somehow won 5 games in a row, and we'll never replicate that again. But I've really been enjoying playing it, and I'm not someone that's really into, like I said before, really competitive kind of games, like multiplayer stuff a lot of the time. But it's just this game for some reason is hitting so hard right now is a great way to hang out with friends online when we can't get together. And I think this game is very interesting in the fact that it's so obscenely popular right now in, you know, the culture. Like all the kids are playing Fortnite, and everyone knows there's action figures and there's the dances and
like,
everything.
Goddamn Thanos was in it.
Yeah, like Thanos, all types of crossovers. There's like Cable and X-Men and Deadpool in it right now. Deadpool's in it right now.
That's interesting, considering that like Fortnite. I mean, it's obviously like a game for everyone, but I think it has a large portion of its player base is kids, right? So Deadpool seems like sort of a weird...
I know, yeah. I kind of thought the same thing, but he's in there, and I guess there's something for everyone, right? But you know, I think this game gets written off a lot by people that aren't into it as like, oh, that's for the annoying 10-year-olds, and like these dances are stupid, and like I'm not really into the dances, and to be honest, they don't even really come up that often in the game. It's more just like a taunt. But the game itself is really fun. Like I'm really enjoying playing it. I think the guns feel good to control. I don't really know how to build very well, but I think there's something really cool about it's you and your team against a bunch of other teams, and you're just trying to, should we hide, or like I see a guy in the distance, should we start shooting at him, or should we just let him walk by and maybe save our ammo for later, or, you know, not give away our position. And it's really gotten me into it in a way I just didn't expect, because of the tenseness or how tense you feel when you're getting hunted or someone's taking shots at you and you're trying to figure out, okay, well, if I stay in this house, I've got a sniper and you can flank around this hill, so I'll stay here. And you really have to be, you know, it's a lot of teamwork, I think, for these type of games, the battle royales. And so it's also that constant dopamine hit of like, we actually got the battle pass. My friend gifted it to me just because we were having so much fun. And so you level up pretty quickly and you're always unlocking all this new stuff. And I'm not really one into cosmetics or those type of things, but for whatever reason right now, this is a situation where I have kind of been caught up in like, oh, it'd be nice to level up, or like, this skin is cool. Like maybe I'll just play one more game and maybe unlock it. And I don't know how long I'm really going to play for, but you know, it's something I'm definitely going to keep going back to for the next little bit. Just a fun online experience. It's nice and lighthearted. We kind of don't even really talk about the game half the time when we're playing. We're just chatting about other things and kind of just hanging out in the game while we're just talking on chat.
Yeah,
but it's a good time.
That's interesting. And knowing a lot of your gaming history, that's not a game I would have ever pegged you to get into.
I know, me either. And like it doesn't really interest me aside from I've gotten into it this one, a couple of weeks.
And now do you think like it's just, you said the social aspect, which obviously makes a lot of sense. Do you think that will bridge you into playing more of those games? Like, will you kind of dapple into like something like Apex or PUBG as well, or just Fortnite because it just has a little bit of a special aspect to it? That's
an interesting question, because Fortnite's not, I love Apex Legends. I think that's a great game, and I know I don't play a lot of online games, but Apex is the one that I think is my favorite, actually. And I would play that all the time. This would be my Apex Legends if I had friends that were interested in playing Apex. For whatever reason, the people that I play with, they just really prefer Fortnite, and that's why I'm playing it. I think I would be into Apex the same way, probably even more, because I think that's more fun. I'm more interested in the first person kind of setup, and I like the world of Apex more. I like the characters having their different abilities, and I think it's more interesting for me, but just because this is where the friends are at, this is what I'm playing, right?
And I guess this one's maybe a little better for more of the casual aspect where you're just joking around as
exactly,
well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's so many challenges on the battle pass. It'll be like, go fishing 3 times and catch a fish. Like you can just, it's not even fighting anyone, whereas in Apex it's always like get 10 headshots with a pistol, and you're more like, you have to be more honed in on it when you're playing that. Whereas this is just like, oh, we died, who cares? Like it's fine type of deal. So I don't know. I recommend like check it out if you're interested. Like I know it's kind of a hard sell for some people because it's so, you either like it or you find it annoying, right? And I've kind of been flipped in a way. Not that I'm a huge Fortnite fan or anything. Like after this season or whatever, I'm probably not going to touch it again, but it's good for now. Been enjoying it. But if we want to talk about something that I've really been playing a lot of, we recently linked our Steam share together. Thank you again for doing that because I don't have a lot of Steam games. You have a ton.
No problem. I was mostly just annoyed about how we talk about it every single month and then not do it.
It's always on the to-do list, but
it's finally done.
So you have a game on here, Slay the Spire. Now this isn't, I'm not playing it on PlayStation, but it is on PlayStation. So I'm going to talk about it anyway. But this game is a great deck building game, which I really like. I think trading card games are really cool, but the thing that always turns me off about them is the PvP. If you don't pay for it, you're not going to have the good cards, so you'll never win type of deal. And like how much better buying things is versus like just playing with whatever you get or like especially in person or whatever.
There's that barrier that is hard to access.
Exactly, yeah. But this game takes away a lot of those frustrations because it's not PvP. You're playing against computer enemies that come up and they'll have different guys attacking you in whatever level you're on. But I love being able to build a deck and kind of flesh out how I want to play without having to worry about like microtransactions or I should go buy a booster pack or like, oh, these cards are now, from the old set, so you can't use them anymore in like a traditional trading card game. And so this is a perfect storm for me as far as a card game where I can build my deck. And if I don't like it, next time you play, it's a roguelike. So when you lose or when you beat it, the game kind of just ends and then you restart from the start. And there's 4 different characters you can pick and all of them start with some very similar abilities. It's just basically attack cards and defend cards and a couple special ones here and there. But as you kind of progress and you go through more and more levels and floors on the Spire, every time you beat a level, you get to pick one of 3 cards to add to your deck. And because it's such a limited choice, you have to pick just the one you think is best at the time. And then every time you beat a level, you're kind of, okay, well, last turn I picked this card where if I discard a card, I gain 2 attack next turn. So then after you beat the next level, you'll maybe see another card, which is like, oh, discard 3 cards and gain 2 health or something like that. Then you're like, well, I have this discard card from before, so now that would be good synergy. And your deck can kind of look very different even if you're playing the same character multiple times. I think eventually, like I think you've reached this point, you've played a lot of it too, where eventually you kind of know all the cards and maybe the best way to set up each character and what's going to be maybe the most effective strategy.
I had a few phases with the game when I played it, and I would recommend it. I think it's a phenomenal game. I love deck building. I like trading card games just in general. Deck building is one of my favorite aspects of it. I love these kind of games. I love like deck building board games. I play a lot with my friends, and this game was great for like the beginning is exciting when you're just learning about all these different cards, and then you sort of go through like that mid phase where you kind of know a lot of the cards, you're sort of trying out different
That's kind of where I'm at right now, yeah.
And then you get to the third final phase where you know everything in the game, and then you're like trying to min-max and craft like the perfect version of every character.
Right.
And then it was at that point, after I'd been addicted and gone through all the phases, where I stopped getting that excitement of like opening a new pack of cards or like getting new stuff, that I finally fell off playing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not forever. I've been binging a lot of it now.
It's a very bingey game.
And it's cool too because you'll have a bunch of cards to pick from, but the more you play a certain character, you can unlock even more cards that will show up in your next runs. So even if you played a character a bunch of times, eventually you will unlock all of their cards, but you'll have to play them multiple times before you do. And then when you do get the new cards, there's new ways to play, and it just kind of is a repeating cycle of like, oh, I should do one more run and see how far I can get. And, just to get back to the deck building for a second, I really appreciate the way this game does it, because I think one of the most intimidating things about other card games as well is like, you're like, here's all the cards, build your deck. And it's like, well, you don't really know what's good or bad, but this game, it just gives you the very simple cards at the start. And then you slowly add one card after every battle in the way that you kind of build your deck over time instead of building it all for one battle. And in that way, it's easy to build a deck for someone that's not as familiar with maybe the best strategies for these types of games, such as myself, because I don't play a lot.
Right. And it also encourages you to try out different cards you might not necessarily have picked out otherwise, because out of the 3 options, maybe you don't inherently gravitate towards one of them, or you don't like the other 2 options. You almost kind of get like stuck with the card sometimes, but then it ends up being interesting, or you end up building your deck around it. So
exactly, yeah. And then I have, and then the other aspect too is there's 4 different characters in this game as well, and they all unlock completely different card sets, and you can build them all very differently, and each one of them has like 2 or 3 different main mechanics that their deck works around. Like there's one guy who is all about more discarding and whatnot, like the red guy with the sword, I forget what his name is, the Wanderer or something like that. Like he's all about like discarding and exhausting cards, which is like you can play it once and then it's gone. Whereas the last character, the DLC character, is all about different stances. So when she can change stance and do double damage, but then she takes double damage. And then you're trying to like, okay, I'm going to go into this attack stance, and then for my last card, I'm going to play a defensive stance. So now when the enemy attacks, I don't take as much damage, and you're trying to balance like what you're playing when, and it's just completely different really than playing the other characters. And then there's 2 more as well. And overall, I think it just adds to, it all contributes to making you just want to do another run. And it's very, very addicting. So I'm probably going to play that for the next little bit as well. I've just played in between, Final Fantasy and whatever I'm doing, but it's fun just to unwind and kind of play something like that while you're also making progress. That
to me was one of those games where like I put on like TV or something in the background and then Slay the Spire, and you give, 50% totally attention to either thing, and it's a great game.
It's a great game. But that's going to do us for the game we've been playing. We'll be back in just a few seconds after a nice musical interlude to talk about some PlayStation news. Hey everybody, welcome back to the second segment of today's show. And yes, that means it is time to talk about the news. There's been, I feel like there's been, for PlayStation, despite the fact they haven't actually revealed the PS5 yet, there's been a lot of news recently, I think, kind of coming out with the controller and everything. And we've got a couple stories here today as well. Kate, would you like to read the first?
Yeah, absolutely. So our first of the 2 stories for this week comes from Jim Ryan. It's the President and CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment. This comes from the PlayStation blog. As a thank you to all who are doing their part to lessen the impact of this pandemic, Sony Interactive Entertainment is pleased to announce the Play at Home initiative, obviously in response to the coronavirus.
Yes.
And the home quarantine. So to support Play at Home, PlayStation will try to make these occasionally dull moments more exciting by offering Uncharted, the Nathan Drake Collection, and Journey available for free for a limited time through digital download. Once you redeem the games, they are yours to keep. And then the article goes on to say, independent developers are vital to the heart and soul of the gaming community, and we understand the hardships and financial struggles that many similar gaming studios are facing. With that, SIE has developed a fund to support them during this time. We have earmarked $10 million to support our independent development partners. During these days of physical distancing, fans have turned to gaming for moments of respite and enjoyment. At Sony Interactive Entertainment, we are privileged to bring this much-needed entertainment. We know this is just one small step, and we are thankful to be able to offer this support to our players, our communities, and our partners. Basically just a quick overview of that. Then they're giving out a couple free games to the players, and also then putting this initiative forward to help out the smaller studios to make sure that they can still succeed despite, all the setbacks that are going to be happening. So
yeah, I think it's a great move personally. Obviously it is free games for people, right? And I think they're in a really good position to do that, especially coming towards the end of, the PS4 generation, where people that are going to have played Journey or the Nathan Drake Collection, like most people that wanted to play it would have bought it by now. So they're not really losing a lot of sales by giving them away for free. But it's a really nice goodwill gesture, I think. Especially during these times when it's good PR, right, for them, I think, more than anything.
Yeah, I think it's just a win-win for everyone. Like for gamers who don't have those games, or maybe they've played it on a different system.
Yeah, or they don't have money at the moment to buy a new game to play while they're unemployed or something.
Yeah, exactly. And
I think that's definitely really good. And if you want to get into like the second part as well about the independent developers and the extra fund they have to support them, I think that's a great move as well, because not only is it, again, another nice goodwill gesture to kind of help out these smaller studios, but also I think leading up to the launch of the PS5, they need as many launch titles and whatever for the PS5 as possible. Obviously, they're probably going to have some big first party, at least one big first party game to come out. But I think indies are often what can prop up. Indies will be a big part, I think, of propping up kind of content on the new consoles as they come out and launch. So if these studios were shutting down or getting delayed in terms of like their development cycles on their new games because of money and financial problems, I think this is a really smart move for Sony to keep those guys working and developing for their release of PS5.
Yeah, exactly. I think that definitely can't be overlooked, that those smaller studios make up like a large portion of the content that people actually play,
and indie games
right?
are so
and
popular these days. It's not like there's some, I mean, back at the start of PS3 and Xbox 360, it was kind of like, oh, that's a downloadable game. Like, that's not really what I want to play. But now, like, if you look at that landscape of games and where they've come, like, indies are often being considered for game of the year these days.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's just so much creative freedom right now in the industry, and there's so many different developers, taking new takes on different genres, or even just creating new types of genres and experiences. It's like almost like we're in a golden age. Obviously, right now we've kind of slowed down a bit in terms of like, what's really going to be releasing soon and whatnot. But there's just so many amazing games that have come out in the last few years,
play them all, right?
You just it's almost nice to kind of get a bit of a sort of like a hard reset and just some extra time to sort of sit and relax and make your way through your catalog. And
totally.
The funny part is, so I think this is all fantastic, and I think it's also something that they need to do to stay competitive in a way too. Like, the first thing I thought of when I read this was I compared it to the Epic Games Store that is just consistently pumping out free games. Yeah. Like, I probably have a library of like 30 plus games on Epic Games Store. I haven't bought a single game on that platform.
Exactly. Yeah, me either. That's a good point.
And I think it's nice to see some of the bigger players trying to maybe emulate that in a way as well.
Totally. Do you? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, what the one small caveat to this that's a little bit funny and maybe unfortunate for some people, but there is an asterisk in this article that says, in Germany and China, instead of it being the Uncharted collection in Journey, they have access to Journey and Knack too.
Oh dear.
So
sorry, German listeners.
Sorry, guys.
A little bit unfair there. The quality might dip a little bit in your experience.
And the article doesn't elaborate on that anymore, but I'm so curious as to why.
Yeah, I wonder.
Two regions get Knack too.
Yeah, I wonder if it's like licensing or some like legality.
Maybe, but it's just weird because Uncharted's like one of the quintessential PlayStation franchises. And like, how do you replace that with Knack 2?
I know, it's a bit of a slap. Like, you think they would at least, we can't give Uncharted guys, there's a legal reason why we can't. So let's like, give them something a little bit better than Knack 2.
Yeah, like have The Last of Us or God of War or another really big PlayStation game. But instead, you can look forward to Knack 2.
Yeah. So obviously this is happening because of the coronavirus and isolation and everything. Do you think there's potential, like, depending how long this goes on, is this a one-time deal, or do you think they might do like another play at home release in the future?
I mean, I think I could see them doing it again before the world kind of goes back to normal. Like, I think we've kind of been understanding communities and especially like where we live in the world, like this is going to extend probably for at least another couple months. Like, this is not just the
couple months at best, it seems like.
Yeah, like this is not just like the small couple weeks that we were maybe naively hoping it would be at the beginning, and we're kind of settling into realizing that this is going to take some time before things go back to what we would have considered a regular routine. So I think it would be smart of them, and it would probably work out in their benefit as well as the customer's benefit to maybe do this few times,
Mm-hmm.
but longevity of it, I don't know, considering that it's sort of, they've already kind of covered that with the free PS Plus games that they give out
you do
every
pay
month.
for PS Plus, which is the difference.
But, and that's true, but I think it really would depend on if, like Microsoft offered this.
Yeah.
Like with Epic Games doing it, and the PC environment is quite different to a degree. So while that is technically a competitor, it's not really a direct competitor.
Way. Exactly, yeah.
So I think maybe if Microsoft offered it going forward and it was just something that they were pressured to do, then maybe, but I don't see them replacing PS Plus games with something like this in the future.
Yeah, no, I don't know if they would replace it, but I definitely agree, like, depending how long this kind of goes on for, I could see them doing it again. I think, like, just speculating, obviously, and kind of, like, spitballing here, but, like, if they were to do it again, I could easily see maybe Horizon Zero Dawn being an offering on here, just because it's kind of coming to PC, and I think that some people in the PlayStation ecosystem could be like, oh, why is our PlayStation exclusive coming to PC? Well, maybe to mitigate the fact that they're putting on another platform, maybe they'll be, at the same time, they could be like, hey, Horizon is now free for everyone on PS4 or something, just to kind of, if they did want to do it again, I think that would be a good shout. That's something they could do, but...
Yeah. Except in Germany, obviously, where you get, like,
NAC
zoomies.
NAC 1.
Yeah, that's the thing, too. You get all Uncharted games, but you only get NAC 2, not NAC even 2. The NAC collection.
Oh, man. I know. Yeah.
Oh, dear.
Wow. Well, we'll see if they do it again. But we got a second story here. We'll move along. This one is about the PS5 launch supply is going to be lower than the PS4. This is according to Takashi Michizuki and Yuki Furukawa from Bloomberg. It's a really big article, so if you're interested, please go and read it, because this is just quite a small summary of a very large article. But it goes as follows. Sony Corp plans to produce far fewer units of the upcoming PlayStation 5 in its first year than it had previously for the previous generation console's launch, according to people familiar with the matter. Sony's strategy, according to several people familiar with the plans, will rely on the incumbent PS4 models as a bridge to get new users into the PlayStation platform's network services while the PS5 remains in limited supply, the people said. The company has told assembly partners it would make about 5 to 6 million units of the PS5 in the fiscal year ending in March 2021, according to people involved with the machine supply chain. When Sony released the PlayStation 4 in November 2013, it sold 7.5 million units in just the first 2 quarters. The PS5 production volume could still change depending on the COVID-19 situation, people said, but still, Sony remains unlikely to delay the PS5 from critical year-end shopping season, so long as the arch-rival... I think it's funny they use the term arch-rival.
Yes.
As long as arch-rival Microsoft Corp doesn't push back the release date of its next-generation Xbox, also expected at the end of the year. Sony won't delay either, the people said. That's a weird sentence. Some analysts believe the close contests for attention between PlayStation and Xbox, especially in the US, may force both companies to sell their new consoles at a loss. Of course, like I said, there's a lot more. I was kind of picking and choosing the important aspects of the article, but how do you feel about this news?
I mean, it's definitely sad news.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to say exactly why. I mean, obviously the coronavirus and it's probably very difficult to make business decisions, but there's so many behind the scene things that go into making a decision like that we're not privy to.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely unfortunate is the initial response. Like, my worry is that you get people who buy up large quantities and then resell it.
Mm-hmm.
I think is the biggest concern and issue with having such a low stock. Yeah,
and we're not talking about insignificant numbers either. Like, it says 5 to 6 million they're potentially going to make here for launch. Like, if the PS4 sold 7.5, if they're down to maybe even, let's say, 5 million, like, that's 2.5 million less consoles is a lot. And you'd have to think the interest in PS5 would be higher than the PS4 because of how successful the PS4 is. I think a lot of people who don't have a PS4 are waiting to jump in at the PS5. And it's going to be tougher for them to get the console.
Yeah. Like, I know I want to get one pretty much immediately. Yeah. Like, I have a big backlog of PS4 games I still need to play. So it's not like I'll be, getting rid of my PS4, but, I'm going to be excited to get a PS5 day one and see what the console's all about and try some of the new exclusives. So if I can't get my hands on one, I will be disappointed. But at the same time, like, there's so much uncertainty right now. I don't know. I don't necessarily blame Sony for not being able to produce them if it's a challenge, but it's just an unfortunate consequence of where the world's at right now.
I just wonder, like, how much of it is to do with the virus, though, because it says, like, at the end of the article when they mention they don't plan to push back the release as long as Xbox doesn't push back. It seems like they're almost taking Microsoft's lead on when they're going to be releasing the console, which I think is kind of weird, right? Because I think Sony has this perspective, like, yeah, we're number one, like, we're PlayStation, this is our brand, we have all the best exclusive games, like, which is true, right? For the most part, and it's weird that they are saying, as long as arch rival Microsoft doesn't delay, then we're not going to. But wouldn't it be like, oh great, Microsoft's delaying, we're gonna get our console, which is better, out first?
I think the perspective on that is that they would like to delay so that they can send out, a better amount at the time and avoid these issues from having a smaller stock. But I think because of that competition, they can't afford to delay if Microsoft doesn't, because people who are on the fence, I mean, a lot of people I think already know which one they're going to buy ahead of time. Like, there's not a lot of people that are in the middle deciding, but those people that are unsure, if only Microsoft releases their console and one comes out, that's the one they're going to get.
Right.
So I think it's not so much that, like, oh, if Microsoft delays, oh, we'll do it too. Why not? I think it's the opposite, that, like, they're not going to delay if Microsoft doesn't, so that they can stay in that competition.
Yeah, I can see that, I guess. Yeah, that makes sense. What do you think about them selling the console at a loss?
I mean, I don't know. I'm not a business. Not a business
That's the
person.
hard part, right? Yeah,
right?
Spoilers,
like,
we don't have business degrees.
Yeah, spoilers. Selling at a loss sounds like a bad thing. I don't recommend that. But at the same time, like, it might just be as it is, right? Like, they're going to make that money back probably by...
Well, they'll make it back in games and PS Plus subscriptions and everything.
Yeah, and PS Plus. And even if they're selling at a loss right now, like, over the lifespan of selling the PS5, it might recuperate.
Yeah,
so, like,
and I think I don't know specifically which ones off the top of my head, but I don't think selling consoles at a loss is an unprecedented move to get people kind of into your ecosystem. If you're taking, a few, like, even $100 off at a loss for the console, you're making profit on every game that comes out. You're making the PS Plus money. Like, I think it's not like Sony's going to be hurting for money if they sell at a loss.
Yeah, I think that just might be something unfortunate, but, like, the reality of how it's going to have to happen.
Well,
so.
Yeah, well, and also, like, because there's so many people getting laid off and losing their jobs and economic issues right now, I think because of the virus, they can't really afford to put the console out and be expensive. It's obviously going to be pricey, but I don't think they can afford to release it and then have it cost this amount of money where they can't sell it. Or if it costs more than Xbox, like, it would. I think that would be exactly why the PS3 didn't sell so well at the start of its life as well, was that it was so expensive.
Right, and that's another interesting point too. And I wonder how that will play into the numbers thing, because I wonder if they will get smaller sales than they would have originally projected because of the economic situation of a lot of customers right now who maybe don't have the extra funds or don't have that, like, confidence of their stability to make a big purchase. So yeah,
it's interesting to see. I think the thing is that a launch of a console, like, you're going to sell them all. There's enough people around the world that they're going to buy all the consoles. It's just that maybe a fact of, like, maybe they'll buy only one controller instead of two, or, like, less games or something like that. But I don't think you're not going to find these things on shelves when they come out. It's going to be sold out. The pre-orders are probably, they'll sell out in 2 seconds on the internet.
Right.
But I think it'll be interesting to follow and see what happens. Like, if Microsoft does end up delaying their console, or I mean, at this point, you never know what might happen. If they're manufacturing the PS5s right now, like, who's to say they're not going to run into some hiccup halfway through, or something like that. So it'll be an interesting situation to monitor as we move forward.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye on it and see what sort of updates we get in the future, and hopefully...
I mean, hopefully we can all get one, and those who want one can at the release, but But we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it might be a sad Christmas this year, guys.
We'll see. In any case, we're going to end the news segment there for this episode, but we'll be right back after a short break with a PS4 retrospective. All right, everyone, welcome back to segment number 3 of today's show. And of course, that means we're talking about the PS4, we're a second episode in of this PlayStation podcast. So what better time to kind of take a look back at PlayStation's current console just before it gets taken over at the end of the year by PS5 and kind of go back through our history and how the console really, became the thing that made PlayStation the leader of the kind of console market. Before last generation, I think many people would say Xbox 360 was kind of the leader until maybe the very end, but PS4 I think really has proven how strong the PlayStation brand is in terms of video games and how they've gotten to be such a juggernaut kind of in the industry over these last 7 years, I guess, since the PS4 came out. So yeah, PS4 came out 2013. It seems like forever ago now that happened. Wow. I remember I actually worked at EB Games at the time when PS4 came out, and I was so exciting to be one of the people on the front lines kind of talking to customers about like, what are the new features? What are the differences between this and the Xbox? And it's kind of a really cool thing to have been involved in that level of it at the start, and now at the end, starting this show and talking about PlayStation 4 specifically as kind of this console that's been this span of time, I would say. Yeah. And of course the Pro came out in 2016, and there was a Slim as well. I don't know the year when the Slim came out. I probably should have looked that one up, but I think it was before the Pro. Probably 2014, 2015, something like that. But yeah, what are your overall kind of thoughts on PS4? Obviously, I think it's arguably both of our favorite game consoles of all time.
It's definitely my favorite game console, and it's still something like, it's funny to say, like, looking back on it for me, because I still have so many PS4 games that I haven't gotten around to playing yet that are so incredibly, like, high on my list. And, like, I have, like, an amazing catalog. Like, I'm going to get a PS5, like I said, day
Hopefully
one.
as soon as possible.
Well, yeah, as soon as possible. But, like, I'm still going to be using my PS4 for a long time after that. There's so many amazing games I want to play. So... it's kind of weird in that sense, to feel like looking back on it when I'm still very much looking forward to to a lot of things.
Totally. But at the same time, like 7 years ago was a very different time to where we're at now in terms of like where we're at in our lives, what kind of games we play, what we have played since then. Like it's a long length of time, and I think there was so much that worked really well for the PS4 that's made it this kind of console that's so revered at the time. Like, and we have to start by saying like the first party lineup of games for this system is just incredible, with all the top tier, like God of War, Bloodborne, Spider-Man, Persona 5, like Last of Us, Uncharted 4. There's tons more we didn't even say there, but there's just so many. It looks like everywhere you turn, there's just like amazingly high quality games of every type that are on this system.
Like there's so many, it's hard to get through them all, right? There's just
Horizon
too many good
Dawn.
Options. Yeah.
It's just the catalog of first party games I don't think that's ever really been stronger. And unless you look, maybe you could argue maybe the PS2 or Game Boy or those older systems, but in the modern generation, like comparing it to Xbox or even like the Wii U at the time, like there's just the quantity of quality exclusive titles on the PS4 is something else.
And those are on top of all the other massive games that come out cross-platform as well. So like it just has such an absolutely like wonderful, diverse and like impressive catalog of games, and it makes me really excited to see how those franchises go forward into the PS5 and like what other new franchises they bring into it.
Right, or which older ones they revive.
Yeah,
totally.
Crash Bash.
Let's hope so.
As we've said.
We're going to shout Crash Bash out a lot on here, I feel.
Yes.
But the other thing that I think PS4 did very well, or something that it's introduced into the non-PC gaming market is how accessible PSVR is. And I think that's a really underrated kind of aspect of PS4, because it's not overt. Like not everyone has a VR headset. Not everyone is interested in this kind of space of gaming yet. Is very much like in its infancy. But the fact that PlayStation has a VR headset you can play at home without having to have a high-end PC, and it has exclusive games like people love Astrobot Rescue Mission, and that's an exclusive, and Iron Man VR is supposed to come out. I think they are really ahead of their time in having this kind of VR headset that people have been able to experience for a relatively lower price than some of the other ones.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's always the big thing that stops people from playing VR is difficult to.
It's difficult to get it, right?
To get it, and it's still a novelty, and having that accessibility is probably really special for a lot of people who wouldn't experience it otherwise.
But I mean, it's not been like a perfect console. There are, some things that didn't work so well as well. Like the controllers just have the shittiest battery life. I think the DualShock 4 just dies in no time. And that's been a huge complaint. Like it's obviously not like a world-ending problem, but like it's something I think that they're looking to improve for the next, PS5, obviously. And I mean, it's got other problems like that too. Like the hard drive right now just seems so incredibly tiny once you have this huge log of games after having the console for so many years.
Especially if you're buying a lot of things digitally.
And we're all kind of moving more towards that, right? And the games are just like Final Fantasy, I think is like not Final Fantasy. One of the games that just came out is like 100 gig install or something. It's just ridiculous how big it is. And I think these hard drives are just so small, and it's like it just seems dated now to have this hard drive kind of issue, and hopefully it can be remedied. But I think the other one that really doesn't work so well right now too is PS Now, which is the streaming service you can kind of sign up for, but I mean, comparison to what Xbox is offering with Game Pass, where you just get like every first party game for free, and you get all these third party games that are their day and date, like release day, you can play Outer Worlds and all these games where PlayStation, they're like, yeah, we got PS Now, but we don't really advertise it. And guess what you can play on there? It's like all these old PS3 games, which are great, but it's not like the new game that's going to get you to sign up for the service, Yeah. And except for there's a few exceptions they put on there now. I think they had, was it God of War that was on there? Or I think Control or something. Like they had a few, but overall, like this PS Now is really not become anything to really talk about.
Yeah, like I don't know a single person who
subscribed. Like, I mean, they even had a free trial at some point, and I don't think, you never even heard about it.
Yeah, it's something you don't hear about. I hear about like you said, the Microsoft Xbox version, I hear about it all the time. Pretty much everyone I know has a PlayStation in my circle and doesn't even play Xbox.
Yeah.
But that's the one
people know.
Comes up, right?
Yeah. And I think like they've done a really good job recently of making the PSN more stable. But I remember like even a few years ago, there was all those times the PSN was getting hacked and like having your sensitive information potentially stolen.
That's right. Yeah, I remember in the PS3 we got free games that one time because because of the hacking. And I got Infamous.
yeah, right.
That's why I played Infamous. It was free.
But I mean, maybe that's not their fault that they got hacked. But at the same time, like obviously it was hackable and not impossible to get into. Like this didn't happen to every company; it happened to Sony. And so I think that is something they'll continue to improve the online service, I hope, and maybe make it better. The only other thing I would say about what didn't work so well was the lack of the backwards compatibility.
Yes, that was the big point I had put down as well, is it didn't exist, basically.
Yeah.
I'm excited and happy that they seem to have addressed that with the 5.
Yeah, I think, PS5, they said they're going to be most PS4 games will run on it, if not at launch.
Yeah, they said the majority of games, there's a few caveats that just, for whatever reason, aren't going to be compatible, but they said the vast majority of games, they're testing them and they should be working. So that's important to me because, like I mentioned earlier, I've got a big list of backlog games. Yeah. It's going to be really cool if I can play them on PS5.
Well, it'd be nice, wouldn't it? You have all these PS4 games. You can unhook your PS4, plug in the PS5, and you're playing the same games, but on a better system.
Like right now in my entertainment stand, I still have my PlayStation 3 plugged in. I haven't. It's been a long time since I've used it, but I still have it because if I ever want to go back and play a game, that's my only option. But it would be nice to be able to kind of clean that up a little bit and have my beautiful new PS5 just sitting there.
Absolutely. So, not to be too down in the negativity, let's talk like what were some of your favorite games and features and that you have really fond memories of from the PS4? I mean, obviously it was still going on. It's not like it's dead or anything.
Yes. I still use my PS4 almost on a daily basis. It's kind of funny. I'll start with some features, and it's sort of like not the most flashy or exciting thing, but one feature I've actually just recently been taking advantage of a lot is the cloud saves.
Oh, the cloud save is great.
It's fantastic. It's phenomenal. So since we've kind of been in this quarantine, I've been home a lot. My school has been all online, and right now I'm actually just on a break until early May, so I've got tons of extra free time. My boyfriend Matthias, he is working from home, so he can do his job fully on home, but obviously no more offices. So I've been spending a lot of time staying at his place and quarantining there, but I have been back at my place maybe like once or twice a week, and it's fine. I live alone, so
just to pick up clothes and
just
stuff.
To maybe do some laundry, like do a couple things around the house I need to do, feed my gecko, like just some housekeeping stuff. So I've kind of been back and forth a little bit, and I've been using the cloud save for Persona 5 so that I can play at his place while he's working, and then play at my place if I'm home for a day, and kind of go back and forth.
And it's just such a modern convenience. You don't have to lug your console around,
and like I don't have the game physically, so I can't bring the disc with me. So it's such a useful and wonderful feature that like would be so disappointing to not be able to have the game on either.
Well, it's one of those things place. Like we didn't know we wanted that until we could do it.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's a feature you would never think about most of the time because you play at home at your own house, but to be able to kind of like have that convenience to swap back and forth is such a nice feature.
Totally. And another one that I think is really underrated as far as features is the rest mode. The way that it'll update all the games you've been playing and system updates and charge your controllers and everything while sleeping. Like that's really, really cool. Yeah. And I think it saves you a lot of time when you turn the console on. You don't have to wait for your game to update. It's just done for you.
Yeah, and I don't know if the Xbox has that feature, but I feel like it must. I feel like it must, but like I find that the couple friends I have that have Xboxes are always talking about how long it takes to do anything. They're like, every time I turn on my system to play a game, it has to do an update and it takes forever. And maybe that's anecdotal, maybe that's just their experience, but I find I never have that problem with PlayStation. Like I'm always pretty much ready to go. Like downloads are pretty fast for games. Like
more convenient in that way, I think. So that's for sure. The other one I like and I've only recently just started using, which is surprising because I wish I'd known about it before, was the Play Share, which is where, so if I'm playing a game at my house, I can invite you to a party, you can join my party, and then you can basically see what I'm seeing. It's like I'm streaming the game right to you. And I've been playing Resident Evil 2 Remake, which I'm not too far in. I haven't talked about it yet. I'll mention that on another show coming up. But it's been really cool. I've got a friend who's interested in playing with me, and because of the quarantine, she can't come over and watch. So she watched me play over the PlayStation Share. We're just in the chat, and it's like we're playing together, but we're not really together, And I think that's a really, really cool feature, and I think we're going to see more of that as we go forward with, more advanced streaming and internet gets better and all of that. And I think that the fact that it's so seamless even right now on the PS4 is a great capability of the system.
Yeah, those are really cool features, and it's got all like the streaming to your Twitch and whatnot, like things that I haven't really ever used or have a lot of familiarity with, but like
a lot of people would get use out of that.
Yeah, exactly. Those are great things to just be integrated and to be able to do them through the console itself instead of having to get like third-party software to kind of mitigate some of those things. It's fantastic and very consumer friendly.
What about the games? Obviously, you love Bloodborne, Persona 5, Spider-Man. I don't know if you played Spider-Man.
I haven't played Spider-Man yet. This is where I start to feel really bad about myself because I have such a long list of some of these exclusives I really need to play.
Well, yeah, but I mean, at the same time, there's so many. I don't think a lot of people have played every single one anyway.
Yes, I aspire to do so. But yeah, Bloodborne is obviously the top one that comes to mind. Persona 5, I absolutely adored. The biggest one on my list that I need to go back and play is God of War and Last of Us. I haven't made my way into either of those yet.
You'll get through.
I've played all the God of Wars up to the new one, and I've absolutely enjoyed every single one of them. This one looks by a long shot significantly better. And my game of the year for the year it came out was Red Dead Redemption 2, which is a phenomenal game as well. But just having looked at God of War gameplay and the limited knowledge have, I was very close at the Game Awards to voting for God of War, even though I hadn't played it yet, because I can tell it's going to be phenomenal.
It already won without your vote. Don't even worry about it. It's all good. I think the interesting thing about this conversation is like, PlayStation has such a reputation for these high quality exclusive titles, but what's I think maybe overlooked a little bit more is the quality of these indie games that have come out as well during this time. Like we kind of said before, I think during the news segment, like indies really weren't as prevalent in terms of like the quality of games they could produce before this generation. Like maybe towards the end of last generation, PS3 and Xbox 360 they were, but this generation is like a whole new game in terms of how good and like high quality and well received these indie games are. Like, I mean, just a few of the ones I like. Enter the Gungeon is fantastic. Like what a game. Like it's great bullet hell and like cool. Like it's more of a story than you'd even expect. And I just spent hours playing that co-op. And like Guacamelee, same thing. Just a really fun game. Rocket League, all these kind of games that are from smaller studios that have come out of nowhere and have found so much success being on PS4 and I guess Xbox as well. Whereas previously, I think a lot of these type of games were more like a PC type of experience. Yeah, it's great that this generation sort of integrated those more. Like when we were doing for the previous episode, our most anticipated games, my runner-up to Elden Ring, which I chose, was actually Silk Song, which is the Hollow Knight sequel. And that game is made by 2 people. And which is ridiculous. It's incredibly impressive. It's a beautiful, wonderful game, and it's up there on my probably top 5 best games I've ever played with all the AAA like $90 purchases. But it's just absolutely incredible what people can do given the chance. Yeah, I mean, interesting. I don't know if you have any really funny memories of the PS4, but I'll tell you my favorite one is I own the base PS4, which is the Destiny bundle. Which is, I really wanted the white console. I don't really know. I have just an affinity for white consoles for whatever reason. Or maybe not even white consoles. Maybe it's just I don't like to own the base version of something as much as possible. I like something a bit more unique. But I kind of held off buying the PS4 at the start. There wasn't a whole lot of great launch games, I think, was something else was maybe a negative for the PS4. Yeah, I've got the list up here, and it's sort of... a little lackluster. I know. Knack was there. Yeah. There was they had Call of Duty. I think was like the Call big of Duty. Thing. They had the newer or the newest Assassin's Creed at that time, and Skylanders. Which Assassin's Creed was it at that time? It wasn't Black Flag, was it? It was Black Flag. It was Black Flag. Battlefield 4 was a big launch. Yeah. And then after the first few months, they got some new ones. The second Infamous came out. Yeah. That was Infamous 2 or Infamous Second Son, right? It was probably the first kind of major first party game that actually was any good. I don't think a lot of people have fond memories of Knack. I don't think many people played Knack. Yeah. Well, they only did at launch and there's nothing else to go. But it's funny looking back at this list because there are a few games that I think of as launch titles that weren't launch titles. Like I think of Until Dawn as being a launch title, and it came out in 2015. Yeah, 2 years after. Which, like, a great game that should be up there in the conversation with the exclusives. But like, because the list was actually kind of lackluster, I've sort of compartmentalized in my brain that Until Dawn, because it was one of the first really big games that came out. Oh, fair enough. Anyway, my story is that I purchased the Destiny White PS4, the base model, still the one I use today. I never got a Pro or a Slim or anything like that, but I wanted this console, and I didn't even really want Destiny. I just kind of had it, and my goal was to get the console, trade Destiny to someone else. I got Shadow of Mordor, that Lord of the Rings game. Okay, yeah. It was okay. It was okay. Better than Destiny, not really my thing. But the interesting part is that I was in university at the time, finishing up my degree, and when I bought the PS4, I was about, I think, a week and a half or 2 weeks away from completing my final exam, like my final exam ever, before I got my credential. And I don't know how I did this, but I had the willpower to leave my PS4 sealed, sitting in my room by my desk. And I did not, I was like, James, you are not playing this until you finish your test and do a good job. And and I don't know how I had the willpower, but I managed to do it. And after finishing my test, I came home, opened my PS4, plugged in, and it's like the most rewarding, cathartic feeling to finally open this box, which I had sitting in my room for almost 2 weeks before actually getting to play. I was
That's
very
impressive.
impressed.
Amazing, impressive.
I know. It's really cool, but yeah, looking back, like, I mean, now PS5, like, I'm not doing that now. Like,
God, no.
I'm getting it right away. But I mean, other than that, I just have a lot of memories of sitting around and you know, those couch co-op type games with your friends, or meeting up online and playing stuff. Online play really became a big thing, and more so than on PS3, I think, these days. And a lot of good memories in the social kind of aspect, I think, as well. Not just the single player games, which is more so what I'm interested in doing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, PS4 is a great thing. It's a
Yeah.
great system, and I can't wait to see how it's
see.
improved upon, iterated on. And I'm interested to see how long it's going to last for too, into the PS5 generation. Like, I think in the news before, we had read that they're going to rely on PS4 to kind of bridge the gap if they can't get as many PS5s out. But I wonder, like, how long they're going to support it for.
Yeah, I would say probably a while. The PS4 is still got so many great games to play, and the other thing is, I think a lot of people wait for like the Pro version as well. Like, I bought my PS4 in 2016 when the Pro came out, so I didn't have a base version until then. So I think a lot of people wait for that because they know that there will be an additional version that comes out, and they don't want to buy both, so they wait around for the Pro. So they'll definitely wait till that. Because of the backwards compatibility, I say that they might support it for less time than they normally would, because once you've made that upgrade, it kind of will make your PlayStation 4 obsolete, whereas going from 3 to 4 didn't do that. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting too, because I mean, the PS2 was supported for years and years after the PS3 came out. And I wonder if it's going to be a similar setup with the PS4 going forward now, especially with like indie games being so prevalent. Like, it's not like they require a ton of power to play a lot of those things, so they probably would work just the same on PS4 as PS5. So it's like, likely that it's going to stick around for quite a number of years. That's at least true. 2 or 3 years after PS5 release.
That's true. And even though the PS5 is boasting some really impressive statistics, and it's gonna be a stronger system and definitely be an improvement on the PS4, with the generations as they go on now, it's kind of smaller margins of improvement. Like, going from PlayStation 1 to PlayStation 2 is a bigger jump than 4 to 5 now, because there's only so much.
Yeah, it's more like this generation, I think, it will be an improvement, but I think it's going to be more like we have faster processors, so we can stream things easier, and loading times are shorter, and draw distance can be rendered quicker, and stuff like that. Yeah,
exactly. They're still improvements, but they're less like jumps. They're just improvements. So to kind of keep those, it kind of makes that a sort of a different situation in terms of like if you're going to be using both of them.
Yeah. Well, hey, that's the PS4. That was God, what a system. So good. So good.
It's okay. It's not done yet. We can enjoy it for a few more months still.
Hey, and if you enjoy the PS4, let us know too. Get in touch. You know what I mean? Get on that Twitter.
Let us know. What are your favorite PS4 games?
Yeah, let us know. Anyway, that's going to do us for the show today. I think we've pretty much exhausted this. So, like I said, thank you very much for listening. We really appreciate everyone here that's engaging with the show and enjoying our content. So, anyway, we will be back in a couple of weeks' time with another episode. And until then, stay safe and enjoy the PS4. The intro and outro music for Circles and Squares was produced by friend of the show, Matthew Chan. Interlude music is from Scott Gratton of the Free Music Archive. Our channel art was created by @unreasonable on Twitter, and our brother Alex is the designer of the Circles and Squares logo. Thank you all for listening and supporting the show.